Right, so I've been very positive about the 14 Pro series, but it's time to rant about the regular models because we have early pre-order stats basically suggesting the market might have rejected these phones, and I'm not surprised by this, and so let's delve into it. So why am I so disappointed with these phones? Well, it's basically because Apple's done the bare minimum when it comes to upgrades. You see, in the past, the regular models have offered 90 to 95% of the flagship experience. For example, the 12, which was peak regular iPhone in my opinion, had the same display on the front, the same ultra-wide and wide, and the same chip as the 12 Pros, but you only lost out on RAM and of course a cheaper build. And even with the 11 to an extent, yes the display was LCD, but otherwise you were getting the same RAM, the same chip, the same cameras apart from the telephoto, and of course all the new camera features. And that's why I've been a massive fan of the regular models, because these phones have offered great value in the past, but then we did start seeing a shift with the 13 series, where the 13 and 13 Pro had pretty major differences, one of them being ProMotion of course, but also the A15 chip was different between these devices. But at least you were getting a variation of the new chip, and the phones at least look the same on the front. But now we come to the 14 series, and this has to be one of the worst iPhone releases in a while, because this phone is so much worse value in my opinion than the Pro models that most should avoid these. Like, Apple really did the bare minimum when it comes to upgrades, because you have basically the same chip, yes more RAM, but that's not going to make a massive difference to most consumers. They did upgrade the camera slightly, so it's a 13 Pro main sensor, but the ultra-wide is the exact same sensor from the 11, so that is very outdated. And also in the front of course we still do have the notch, there is no dynamic island on this, and really the only features worth noting are of course SOS satellite and crash detection, but do remember that most consumers can't use the SOS feature because it's only available in the US and Canada, but also of course most consumers will probably never use these features, and in the case of crash detection there are many cars that already offer this. So yes, no one can really justify getting the 14s solely for the new safety features, and while apart from that there's really nothing else to note. There are minor changes to the camera, but it's not a huge deal, so yes, these phones are terrible value. And I can't lie, Apple could have actually fixed this quite easily by of course giving us lower prices. In fact, there was a report from TrendForce saying the 14 could be $749 and the 14 Plus could be $849, and that pricing structure now would make so much sense, because if you consider the 14 Plus, it's only $100 more to go to the Pros, and at that point, you might as well spend the extra and get the Pro models because they get tons of upgrades. But if these phones were $699 and $799, or $749 and $849, that would have been enough of a price gap for people to consider this, even with the Lackluster upgrades. But because they've been priced so high, you can literally find the 13 Pro series and even the regular 14 for way less. In fact, Apple directly sells the regular 13, so yes, most can definitely get those iPhones instead. And yes, looking at the 13 Pro spec sheets, you can see you have better cameras, a better display with ProMotion, and of course, a better build, so many consumers are going to benefit from that. And talking about pricing outside of the US is absolutely horrific for these regular models. So here in the UK, for example, the 14 starts at $849, and the 14 Plus is $949. Now for reference, that was the price of the 13 Pro at launch, and so clearly consumers are going to be put off when you're paying Pro pricing for the regular models. And yeah, that's exactly what I went through, because I was considering the 14 Plus before the release to get the big phone experience at a lower price, but considering it's close to £1,000, I might as well spend the extra and splurge on the Pro models, and I'm sure many consumers are thinking like this. So yeah, the 14 and 14 Plus are failing apparently, and I'm glad to see this. As a fan of the regular models, it's a real shame to see what they've become, so of course, I'm hoping Apple goes back to the drawing board and of course, gives us better value iPhones. Now as to whether Apple was wrong about killing the mini size, I still don't think so, because if you take a look at the refurbished store, the 12 mini sold out at around $450 in the US, and so really the issue with the mini phone is that, of course, when consumers are looking for a compact iPhone, they're not willing to pay a high price. Maybe they're used to SE pricing, so of course, the smart thing to do would be to bring back the mini size for the SE4, and I can see that being a massive success. But when it comes to the flagship series, I do think the plus size makes sense. A lot of consumers do like cheap big phones, but the problem with the 14 Plus is that A, there's not enough upgrades, but more importantly, the price is not cheap. And so once we see discounts on these, I can see the Plus gaining some traction. And actually, if you remember with the 12 mini, because sales were so disappointing to begin with, we saw aggressive discounts a few weeks after launch, and so that could be the case with the 14 series. Now, I do want to play devil's advocate and also mention that, of course, most regular consumers are not pre-ordering these iPhones on day one. Of course, those are the fanboys like myself, and we're getting the pros for the new features. And so while Quo believes pre-orders are subpar for these products, that might not be the case. And yeah, actually, Quo does say the 14 and 14 Plus has weaker demand than the 13 mini and the SE3, which of course is not that great. But do remember, the SE3 picked up massively a few weeks after release, as more regular consumers bought them, so of course, that could be the case here, where many consumers are just going to walk into store and of course get the regular models, but right now they're not available in stores, and so that's why pre-orders aren't great. Also, do remember with the 14 Plus, this is not shipping till October, so of course many are not inclined to pre-order this, since the whole point we pre-order is to get these phones ASAP, and so because there's a large waiting time for the Plus models, many consumers are going to wait it out till it's officially on sale. So yeah, pre-orders for the regular models might not be as bad as we thought, but I'm hoping it is bad because, as I said, Apple needs to be taught a lesson and the market needs to be rejecting these devices. And hey, if the market does reject these phones and demand is weak, we can then of course see way more discounts on these, so it's a win-win situation for us consumers. Anyways, enough of the bad news. Pre-orders for the Pro models has been good according to Quo, and this makes sense because these are massive refreshes, and we can see major shipping delays with those devices compared to the regular models that of course are still available for launch day delivery, so yes, I'm not surprised by the demand for the Pro models. And hey, maybe Apple's plan was to use the regular models as a decoy and purposely make them worse to upsell consumers to the Pros. That's exactly what happened with me, and I can see many doing that. And with people upgrading less in general, maybe Apple wants you to spend more cash on the iPhone you purchase every 3 to 4 years, and so maybe that's why Quo believes the average selling price for the 14 series is going to be a lot higher, because many are going to get the Pros instead. And yeah, in my opinion, average consumers do focus on the visual changes, and so the fact the notch is gone with the Pros is going to push many towards those models, since they look drastically different to every iPhone that's been released for the last 5 years. So yeah, maybe that's Timothy's big brain idea, I'm not too sure myself. But anyways, Quo does say if demand does get worse for the 14 and 14 Plus, they should cut orders for these devices as soon as November. So yeah, those are the tidbits. But tell me in the comments below, guys, what's your thoughts regarding this? Anyways, thank you for watching, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe for the latest Apple news and rumours. Check out the video in the card above on details regarding the iPad 10, and on that note, see ya peeps.